Absolutely loads to get into, so let's get right into it. Mark, let's start with Manchester United. The interim managerial latest, what is it?
Yeah, significant 24 hours for Manchester United as they close in on that man you can see behind us now, Michael Carrick. He looks like he's going to become the new Manchester United interim head boss. It's off the back of what has been a number of days where Jason Wilcox has been leading the chase to try and find the man they believe that can replace, on an interim basis, Ruben Amorim. Discussions have been happening with Carrick and his representatives over the final details about what the contract and what the situation will look like. There's a thought process as well that Darren Fletcher will stay on and will become a part of Michael Carrick's backroom team. One of the clues, I guess, really was Adam Lawrence, who was at Newcastle United managing their under-21s. He handed his notice in. He's going to be leaving Newcastle. You don't very often hand your notice in unless you've got another job lined up. He was also a part of Michael Carrick's backroom team at Middlesbrough as well. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, another man that's been in the frame for Manchester United, there was discussions over the course of the weekend, but there was no second round of discussions, whereas Manchester United have held further talks with Michael Carrick today. Clearly they've seen something they liked. They liked his ideas, they liked his philosophy, they liked what he thought Manchester United should be, hence why they decided to go back in and discuss in more detail and at length exactly what they see the project looking like between now and the end of the season. He was actually a really successful manager at Middlesbrough, did everything but get them promoted. When he went in, they were in the bottom half of the Championship, really struggling for form. And he turned them into a side that got to the playoff semi-final in the Championship, beaten by Coventry. In the second season, he took them to the League Cup semi-final, played some attractive football, developed young players like Morgan Rogers, who's probably the best player in the Premier League right now. So he's got a good track record. Ultimately, he got sacked in the summer because Middlesbrough and their hierarchy didn't feel he got them to where they wanted, which is, of course, a Premier League return. But clearly that someone had all the things they were just going right for him. He was ticking the right boxes, things were in the right direction, developing players, playing attractive football and trying to get them into the Premier League. He just couldn't get them over that final hurdle. So yeah, just a matter of time now before we get what we believe to be confirmation from Manchester United that Michael Carrick will be the interim head coach.
Right, Mark, I've got a development. Wayne Rooney has just come out and said he was asked if he'd join Carrick on his coaching staff. He said, "Of course I would. It's a no-brainer if that's the situation, but I think that the club needs people around the place. So whether it's Michael goes in, for instance, Fletch or John O'Shea or myself or whoever, it needs people around the club who know football, and Roy Keane, I think." Would Wayne Rooney, given his managerial track record, be a good addition?
Wayne Rooney, I think, picked up 19 points at Plymouth Argyle. I watched 15 of those points. Whatever it was, when I turned up to watch Wayne Rooney at Home Park, the team were brilliant. Played some really attractive football. They had good young players, and there was a clear identity at times. They just clearly, over a longer period of time, lacked what they needed. I think Wayne Rooney, with his experiences at Derby, at Plymouth, at Birmingham, and now having had some time out of the game, will be a far better coach than he was 6 months or 12 months or 24 months ago. The fact that he understands what Manchester United's about, the fact that he is their greatest ever goal scorer, I don't think that will do them any harm by having his input, his voice around that dressing room, particularly when you've got a young striker like Benjamin Sesko, who there is a lot of expectation on. If he's got Wayne Rooney in his ear, just talking him through it, teaching him things on the training pitch, I think that could be brilliant.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's
so 15 of those 19 points, you were there.
Yeah.
Moral of the tale, should have signed you up. But I want to stop you because Carve, could all of this be derailed because we found out in the last hour Xavi Alonso is available. Would it not be negligent of Man United to go, hang on, that's a class act, let's try and get him in?
But you're talking about Xavi Alonso, who used to play for Liverpool.
Doesn't matter. If he's a top manager, does it matter?
I would find it difficult to imagine him becoming the manager of Manchester United. But having said that, lots of things that have happened at Manchester United are difficult to have predicted. Now, Michael Carrick becoming the interim manager or interim head coach was definitely not in the script. When Ineos bought 30% of Manchester United and took over the running of the club, they came out and said they were going to make Manchester United great again. They were going to bring the glory days back to United. Nowhere did they say that we are going to have somebody like Michael Carrick as our manager until the end of the season. Now, take nothing away from Michael Carrick. Fantastic player. But let's be honest, if Manchester United were looking for a full-time manager during the summer, Michael Carrick would not get the job. Now, I wish him the best. I wish him well. This is a fantastic opportunity for him, because if he does well, and by doing well, all I'm saying is finishing in the top 5, getting in the Champions League, then he has a good chance of getting the job on a full-time basis. But my fear is that the problems at Manchester United cannot be solved by a manager. And I've been saying the same thing for 20 years, and I've stopped saying it because I'm bored of saying it. But the problems at Manchester United are to do with the ownership structure. And until that changes, I don't think anything really is going to change at Manchester United.
Mark, I want to go back to Xavi Alonso. Now, over the last, Liverpool are unbeaten in 9, I think, 9 or 10. So Arne Slot has managed to quieten the noise around him. Given Xabi Alonso's available, and given, as Carve says, he used to play for Liverpool, should Arne Slot be worried? Is there a chance that Liverpool might go, there's only a short window that this bloke's going to be available, we need to get him now?
Well, he was linked with Liverpool before he joined Real Madrid. I think the Liverpool hierarchy would avoid at all costs making any type of managerial change during the course of a season. There is still a Champions League to play for. They still could get into Europe, and of course the FA Cup as well. So there are still things that Arne Slot could achieve this season. What happens if he goes and wins the Champions League and the FA Cup and does the double? People won't be talking about him departing Liverpool. They'll be talking about continuing to back him and build on what he's already done in the short space of time that he's been there. But I think what this does with Xabi Alonso is it will put a number of clubs on red alert, because he is the type of manager that potentially could be top 6 material. You know, there's a lot of talk about Pep Guardiola. What happens if Mikel Arteta doesn't deliver a trophy at Arsenal this season? Do they decide to stick with him again?
But don't you go now if you're a club, because he will go?
Potentially, yes. He could potentially go, and you could miss that opportunity. I think with the situation, 8 months at Real Madrid, you know, and they're 4 points behind Barcelona, a financially unstable Barcelona. They lost in the Spanish Super Cup last night against Barcelona, which is not acceptable. You know, second place is the first loser as far as Real Madrid fans are concerned. You know, you cannot be behind Barcelona at any point. I also think, you know, the success he had at Bayer Leverkusen, but he's still very green. You know, despite the 14 major trophies, despite the World Cup, despite 2 Euros, despite all the things he's achieved, he's still very new as a coach. And clearly, the philosophy he has when it comes to playing the game, it didn't work for Real Madrid. So why would it work for Liverpool? Why would it work for Manchester United?
We will revisit Xabi Alonso real quick.
I think Real Madrid is a special case, though. I think what happened with Alonso is he went in there, he tried to take on some big egos in the dressing room. He tried to change the way they played, made it a little bit more like Mourinho football, more defensive, more counter-attacking, and the players weren't really having it by and large. I think his methods would work at a lot of clubs, but I'm not sure they were ever going to work at Real Madrid.
Now, Manchester United's season has been full of drama, punctuated by disappointment throughout. It's certain to be the shortest season in terms of games in more than a century. The question now is who will take on the challenge of trying to rescue European football at the end of the season. Let's head live to Manchester and our reporter Dan Khan. And Dan, you have a development for us this evening.
Yeah, good evening, Rob. We can tell you Manchester United are close to agreeing terms with Michael Carrick for him to become their interim head coach until the end of the season. Now, we reported throughout the day that he was meant to meet United today to continue further talks about the role, but we've been told there's a broad agreement on many of the substantive issues with negotiations still ongoing. There's no final agreement just yet. I think discussions and conversations now focused on his backroom staff, what that looks like. Could it include Darren Fletcher, who's taken the team in their last 2 games? We'll wait and see. But the plan is for Carrick's new contract to run until the end of the season, and this is really what Manchester United wanted, is someone in place, more importantly, to take this team ahead of the Manchester derby on Saturday.
Well, as for that Manchester derby then on Saturday, Dan, how are Manchester United's preparations looking between now and then?
Yeah, look, they're going to have a few days off. I think that's the first thing to say, Rob. I mean, they've been off today, they'll be off tomorrow before returning to training on Wednesday, but before preparing for that big derby on Saturday. Now, a lot of that is down to what has been quite a congested Christmas fixture period. Of course, the Manchester United squad have also been quite stretched in terms of players away to AFCON, as well as numerous injuries as well. Luke Shaw, for example, was left out of the squad against Brighton yesterday, just simply due to squad rotation. So, look, they'll be trying to regather themselves ahead of training on Wednesday, that you would expect now Michael Carrick to take with his new look backroom staff. But look, they now need to, now everything off the pitch looks like it's been sorted with Michael Carrick nearing ever closer to being their interim head coach. They now need to focus on the pitch and get some results in the league, because as you mentioned beforehand, that is their only focus this season. And Darren Fletcher said it yesterday, they have to focus and challenge for those Champions League places, and that starts with a pretty easy one, right? Manchester derby on Saturday.
Dan, thank you very much indeed. So, Clinton, it looks as though it is going to be Michael Carrick. Statistics would tell you that United would need around 69 points to finish 4th. 65 points usually is enough to get you 5th. From what you've seen of him in the EFL, has Michael Carrick got it in his locker to deliver 33 points and above? Yeah,
I think he's got it in his locker for sure. I think he did a good job at Middlesbrough in the EFL and done ever so well. And I did think when jobs were coming available like West Ham, I thought West Ham might look to Michael Carrick, a young manager. So, yeah, I think if he gets the job, I think it'd be a good appointment from now to the end of the season. Do I see him getting it long term? No. I think they need a serious manager, and I'm not saying Michael Carrick at the moment, but what I mean is a proven manager at that football club. But from now to the end of the season, I think Michael Carrick will be a really good appointment. But do I believe this squad of Man United players are good to get into that Champions League? Not at the moment, but the league is wide open. That's the problem. There's only 3 teams that are playing to their potential this season, and that's the 3 teams that are in the top 3 in the Premier League. Other than that, it's wide open this year.
Do you think that initially now there needs to be an adult conversation? I'm sure that this is part of the discussions they're having with Michael Carrick to say, this is it, 17 games, no more. That no matter what you do, there is no chance, unfortunately, of you getting the job full time.
But that's a tough question, because if I'm Michael Carrick and I'm saying in them 17 games I win like 11 of them, a few draws and a few losses, then I want the job, because I've proven myself in them 17 games. But that's down to the hierarchy to have that conversation with Michael Carrick, just to say, this is 17 games, whatever happens, you are not getting the job at the end of the season. But it's a no-win situation for Michael Carrick, because if he goes in there and he doesn't do well, obviously I understand he'll be disappointed, but if he does do well, his stock's high, and there'll be other people looking at him and saying, well, yeah, he could be our future manager, because I do think he's a good young manager, he's a fantastic footballer, and I do think he'll be a top manager.
Do you think that any prospect of him being given the job full time and the temptation to do it is almost made easier for United because they're not in any cups, so he can't hide anything by winning a trophy? And we saw it, for example, at Spurs last season. League form's awful, but win the Europa League. That 5th is the brief, if you get 5th or 4th, and if you get that, it's thank you very much, shake hands and move on.
Yeah, his job is to get them into the Champions League. If Michael Carrick does that, and 5th could be good enough to get into the Champions League, if he does that, he's done his job. And obviously he's done his job brilliantly, because I think a lot of people from the outside would be looking now and thinking, have Man United got a realistic chance of getting into them Champions League? Probably as it stands, no. Maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago where they were in the league, but the run and the results that they've been on been nowhere near good enough. But as I say, I wish Michael Carrick the best. I feel sorry for Man United fans. They're going to have to suffer for a long time. A lot of people said it might be 3, 4, 5 years. It could be longer than that they suffer at the moment. You can see there's a lot of disconnect between the owners and the fans at the moment. So that needs to be sorted out. I think everyone needs to come together, but that's only going to come together when Man United start doing well on the pitch, and at the moment they're not doing well. But I think Michael Carrick will do well. He'll get a tune out of the players. You know what it is, Rob? I watched the game yesterday against Brighton, and I'm thinking, you've only got the cup competition left. Why do you not play your strongest 11? And like Dan Khan just said there, they rested Luke Shaw. You don't need to rest Luke Shaw. You haven't got Europa League football or anything like that. All you've got is Premier League, and your only chance of winning a cup competition would have been FA Cup. If you got a good draw, you might have gone far in that cup competition, but Brighton were the better team. You're knocked out, and all you've got to concentrate now on trying to get into that Champions League.
Because it was interesting when Ruben Amorim was sacked last week. I heard quite a lot of glass half full approaches to where Man United are, i.e. they're only 3 points off the top 4 at the moment. But what are they? 1 point above Sunderland, 1 point above Fulham, 2 above Sunderland, 3 above Everton. That the league is so squashed that it is difficult to sort of work out actually how good they are.
Exactly that, and you're spot on. It's so squashed. If you lose 2 games, you could drop into the bottom half of the table. You win 2 or 3 games in the bottom half, you could jump right. Look at Fulham 4 or 5 weeks ago. They were down near the foot of the table, not right near the bottom, but in them bottom 5 or 6. Now they jumped up to like 8th in the Premier League. So, and now it looks like it's a good season, and that is because the league is so open. Apart from the top 3, everyone else is beating everyone else, and everyone's trying to go on a run at the moment. So that is why Man United are in that position, and that is why people think Man United are doing well. But it's covering over the cracks, and the fans will tell you that it's covering over the cracks. That club is one of the biggest clubs in the world, and it still is one of the biggest clubs in the world. And any manager would want that job, but they just need to get. I've always said it. The recruitment at that football club, Rob, has been nowhere near good enough.
It was interesting, Darren Fletcher said after that game against Brighton yesterday, said, in difficult times, true character is going to show. So they have to dig in and make sure they want to be part of Manchester United's future. Is the worry when there's an interim manager in charge that a lot of those players will think, well, I'll be here longer than him?
Yeah, maybe, but
we saw it a little bit with Ralph Rangnick, didn't we?
Yeah, you're right, but I don't know how a group of players can think. You're playing for Man United Football Club. It's hard for people. I don't know if it's people nowadays and how people's mentality is, but when I'm playing, if you get a chance to go and play for Man United Football Club, you'd be walking up the motorway to go and play for Man United Football Club. You're still putting on that red jersey. They're one of the most successful team there is around in world football. You go away to any other country, everyone's wearing a Man United shirt. That's how well supported they are. And at the moment, I'm looking at the group of players and thinking, there is a lot that know what it's like to play for that football club. But and then you're looking, as I said, there's a big disconnect between the owners and the fans, and that doesn't help. When that starts happening, the fans are starting to get frustrated. I even spoke to a fan yesterday, said, I gave my ticket away because I knew we were going to lose to Brighton. You should not be thinking like that as a fan. So it's disappointing, but yeah, they're going to have to suffer a bit. But hopefully Michael Carrick can go in there and steady the ship. And you never know, they still have a chance because of the position they're in to finish in one of them Champions League spots.
If we assume that it goes down to 5th then,
yep.
Liverpool 4th. Are you going to lock the top 3 in and say that they're all
but I'm going to lock Liverpool in as well.
You're going to lock Liverpool in as well. So let's say it goes down to 5th.
Yeah.
You've got Brentford in 5th on 33.
Yeah.
Down to Spurs in 14th on 27.
They got, to be fair, there's 3 teams that probably, and there's probably, you throw Chelsea into the mix because they'll come good. I think with Liam Rossinho is a good coach and they've got world-class players, Chelsea. Chelsea should be up there anyway. They should be challenging where Liverpool are, and then you go Newcastle, who can go on a great run, who I think will be there or thereabouts, and then the other one you would think is Man United. But if you look at the squads, and you look at Newcastle, and you look at Chelsea, and you look at Man United squad, Man United have some good players, but those 2 other squads have better squads than Man United. So that's why I'd put them 2 ahead of finishing ahead of Man United this season.
So that is, I guess, the reason why they really have to emphasise a focus on the fact that they are the one team of those 3 you just mentioned playing once a week, and that Newcastle and Chelsea have Champions League, or Chelsea have all 4 competitions. Actually,
exactly.
both Newcastle and Chelsea.
Yeah, they have a lot of games coming, so their squad, they've got to utilise their squad. So that is why Man United should have the advantage, because all they've got to concentrate on now is Premier League football, not even FA Cup football, Premier League football. So that is the biggest thing. Look, concentrate on the Premier League, get Michael Carrick in, get him to look at the players and his style of play, and in them 17 games, see if he can get a tune out of them and they can finish in that top 5 of the Champions League spot. If they finish in the top 5 of the Champions League, he's done a brilliant job. He'll be knocking on the door saying, give me the job at the end of the season. But he has to know what his role is when he's talking to the hierarchy. Because what happens, Rob, if he gets them into the Champions League? Does he just leave? he's going to want to stay, isn't it? It's Man United Football Club. So they're the conversations he'll have to be having.
That's what the point I go back to then. That you've said it a few times in various answers about the size of this football club and where Manchester United wanted back. And Ruben Amorim said at the start of the season, look, we all know that actually finishing the Champions League isn't great. We want to be challenging to win the title. And I feel like the mistake was made with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, that there was that famous win against Paris Saint-Germain and everyone got very starry-eyed and gave him the job, when actually it's going to take an Omar Barada, whoever it is, to think, if we want to really go back to being up there with Arsenal and City and teams like that, that it's going to take a Thomas Tuchel or a Carlo Ancelotti.
You know what it's going to take? Let the manager come in, manage the team. Like I've said this many times, and we spoke about it on Soccer Saturday, me and Merce. Let me tell you something. Aston Villa, Unai Emery sorts out everything from top to bottom. Yeah, you already had a sporting director in there, but he's allowed to do his signings. Arsenal do the same, Man City do the same. There's no coincidence that those three teams are doing well this season. So if you're going to get a manager in at Man United, let him do the business.
Going to be another big week at Manchester United, with the club accelerating